At the time of writing this intro, it's the 1-year anniversary of Tears of the Kingdom's release. It quickly became a much more divisive game than I expected, as despite the majority agreeing that the gameplay is a huge improvement over Breath of the Wild, many have cited the story as bringing the game down. I've also noticed that many of the larger Zelda YouTubers haven't made a ton of theory videos on the game, likely due to their disappointment in the plot. I personally don't have an issue with it, and while some may dislike the game's new additions to Zelda lore that contradict what has been established, I'm here today to try to fix the plot holes that have been pointed out. We'll work our way through Tears of the Kingdom, take in details from other games, and consult Hyrule Historia. I made a video like this last year, but it wasn't very detailed and was light on spoilers, so be aware that this video will be spoiling everything from Tears of the Kingdom. At certain points, I'll be referring to the custom timeline I made in my video from last year, and I believe Tears of the Kingdom's past takes place between Skyward Sword and Minish Cap. Additionally, there's a couple plot holes that I already covered in sufficient detail, those being the coexistence of the Rito and Zora at the beginning of the timeline, and the disappearance of nearly all Sheikah tech. Check out that video if you're wondering what I say about those. This is gonna get complicated, so strap in. Ganondorf and the implications that come with him being the main villain of Tears of the Kingdom are one of the biggest hang-ups with it fitting into the greater Zelda timeline. In every timeline that comes after Ocarina of Time, it's the same Ganon, whether he is defeated and comes back as a man or comes back in his boar form. The fact that this Ganondorf is present from very near the beginning of Hyrule Kingdom is already confusing. Ganon is not the villain of any game before Ocarina of Time, and the only thing resembling him is Demise, the demon that curses Ganon into existence. So how can there even be two different Ganondorfs at all? There is actually a canon example of this. The unseen Ganondorf that's mentioned in Four Swords Adventures, who would be different from the Ganondorf in Ocarina of Time. However, that still doesn't explain how this Ganondorf can be sealed away, his body intact below Hyrule Castle, while allowing future Ganondorfs to exist at the same time. I believe that Ganon's spirit as the Demon King always survives and can enter another body. You might say this is wrong judging by the dialogue from Breath of the Wild that states that there has been no male Gerudo born since the one who became the Calamity, but that can still be true. While the original Ganondorf's body lies deep beneath the castle, his spirit can still allow for more male Gerudo to be born while his original body remains locked away. Sure, it's a bit of a cop-out, and is very reminiscent of Palpatine in The Rise of Skywalker, but it wouldn't shock me for Ganon to have that much power. A plot hole that's much simpler to fill is that of the Imprisoning War. Before Tears of the Kingdom, the Imprisoning War is mentioned in the manual of A Link to the Past and Hyrule Historia, and it takes place at the beginning of the Downfall timeline. This war ended with the sealing of both Ganon and the Triforce inside the Sacred Realm. However, the events leading to the sealing of Ganondorf beneath Hyrule Castle in Tears of the Kingdom is also called the Imprisoning War. One prevailing theory is that the two wars are meant to be the same, despite Tears of the Kingdom's very different take on the events. Personally, I believe the passage of time led to the details of the original Imprisoning War being lost, while its name remained and was used to refer to the one involving the Triforce. It's a catchy name, to be fair, who wouldn't want to use it twice? King Rauru's role in Tears of the Kingdom is an intriguing addition to Zelda. It's revealed that he and his wife Sonia are the king and queen who founded Hyrule, and this was initially really confusing when it came to the end of Skyward Sword. The Link and Zelda of that time decided to stay on the surface, and most assumed they were the ones to create Hyrule. However, Tears of the Kingdom confirms that Hyrule was formed after Sonia and Rauru's marriage. I think this actually makes sense. It allows for several generations to pass for humans to spread across the surface, and Sonia is likely a descendant of the original Link and Zelda. As for the Zonai, that's still as mysterious as it was at the time of Breath of the Wild. With all the information we have about them, I have to think that similar to the Wind Tribe from Minish Cap and the Uka from Twilight Princess, they're a technologically advanced species from the sky who were close to the gods. That's all I really have. Some people believe that the past of this game is intended to act as a sort of replacement for Ocarina of Time. And hey, I can certainly see why they'd think that, but I think it's all very similar because it's supposed to draw a parallel between the two events, showing the cycle that always repeats itself with Hyrule's rise and fall. King Rauru has a sealing power of light, as well as being referred to as the King of Light by the sages in their ceremony. This draws a connection to the future Sage of Light seen in Ocarina of Time, also named Rauru. The preview released of Tears of the Kingdom's own Masterworks book even states that the place that Ganondorf was sealed was called the Temple of Light, which again comes back in Ocarina of Time as a location within the Sacred Realm. I kind of went over this in last year's video, but the TLDR is that I think the era of chaos covered in Hyrule Historia came after the sealing of Ganondorf, and that the Sage Rauru was named after the king. To be more detailed, here's how I think things proceeded. With the last of the Zonai gone, many of their landmarks are raised into the sky. With nearly all evidence of the Zonai, the depths, and the secret stones lost, and the kingdom lacking someone on the throne, chaos descends on the land, with rumors of a powerful relic that was hidden by the old royal family, the Triforce. This continues for generations until the Sage Rauru constructs the new Temple of Time on the surface and the new Temple of Light in the Sacred Realm, keeping the Triforce safe. The sky of Tears of the Kingdom is made up entirely of Zonai landmarks from the time of King Rauru. When were they raised into the sky? There's technically an answer for this in-game already, but it contradicts one of the memories. In one of the ancient stone tablets that Link can have translated, it states that Minoru raised the landmarks into the sky. However, in the memory where Zelda becomes the Light Dragon, we can see that King Rauru's Temple of Time is still sitting on the Great Plateau, and there's no other islands visible in the sky. I think the best explanation I have is that the other landmarks were already in the sky, just hidden behind the cloud barrier from Skyward Sword, and that the Temple of Time was either raised by the sages, or was already set to be raised by the constructs. There have been theories that the cloud barrier was still in place since Breath of the Wild, which showed that Dinral, Naedra, and Farosh exited through a vortex-like portal resembling the holes in the sky that Link used in Skyward Sword. That explains when the islands entered the sky, but why can they only be seen after Zelda goes back in time? And why does debris from the islands only start falling at that time too? Many people think that Zelda going into the past changed history as a whole, but I'm taking the murals of her becoming a dragon that were put in the Temple of Light as evidence of this always being what happened. So, in that case, the Sky Islands have always been hidden from view above the cloud barrier. The reason debris began to fall is because Ganondorf's gloom reached up past the barrier and began causing things to fall through. It had to be Ganon, otherwise there wouldn't be any storms above Hebra and Faron. However, the islands still weren't visible yet, as shown in the scene where the castle rises. The barrier is broken once Link sends the Master Sword back in time, and the Light Dragon bursts through the clouds and parts them. At first you might think that the islands were visible, since Pura and many NPCs already talk about them as if they're well-known fact when you first ascend to Hyrule. But let's be honest here, if hundreds of rocks and ruins in the shape of rings began falling from the sky in our world, thinking that there's tons of hidden sky islands floating above us wouldn't be a huge leap in logic. Related to the belief that Tears of the Kingdom replaced Ocarina of Time, many also point out the secret stones of the Zonai as being replacements for the Triforce. The Triforce was the series' main MacGuffin for a long time, until it suddenly became strangely absent in Breath of the Wild, save for its symbol appearing on Zelda's hand when she defeats Calamity Ganon. In Tears of the Kingdom, it again appears on Zelda's hand, this time in the vision Link sees of her restoring the Master Sword. The Zonai ruins on the surface in both games also include statues of boars, owls, and dragons, each of which represent power, wisdom, and courage respectively. I don't think the secret stones are any sort of replacement for the Triforce, and they don't even do the same things. Secret stones amplify abilities their owners already possess, while the Triforce grants a wish to whoever can lay their hands on it. And each piece corresponds to certain people with the spirits of Demise, Hylia, or the hero. I personally think that the Triforce was put into the sacred realm by the Link and Zelda of Skyward Sword, and the Hyrule royal family keeps quiet about it for the most part. However, it obviously becomes known again, with Ganon even realizing that it would be a much better tool than the Secret Stones, hence his age-long quest for it. Eventually, in the thousands of years between most games and Breath of the Wild, the entire Triforce seems to be passed down to each daughter of the royal family. Ganon mostly began seeking major destruction of the kingdom, likely hoping that the seal on his original body below the castle would give out with enough damage. After all, finding the Triforce would be a lot easier if he could get his secret stone back. It's never stated this way, but reframing Zelda holding Calamity Ganon in the castle for 100 years as her keeping the Triforce from his grasp is something that I think is plausible. Then, after Ganondorf reawakens in tears, he has no idea where Zelda and the Triforce are, so he settles on taking over Hyrule before starting his search again. I really think the Triforce is always the ultimate endgame for Ganon. There's just plenty of obstacles in the way in the most recent installments. Now, let's get into the very last plot point. There is one prevailing question that always comes into my head when I think of the past of Tears of the Kingdom. Where is the hero, and where is the Master Sword? That same question has been asked before when the gods flooded Hyrule in the Wind Waker, but in this case, there was no intervention from the gods. Ganondorf ran rampant across the kingdom and was only stopped with the sacrifice of its king. Why was this allowed to happen? First, I'll address where I think the Master Sword is. At the end of Skyward Sword, it was laid to rest in the Sealed Temple, which, in my opinion, is the modern-day Forgotten Temple. However, if it had been there in King Rauru's time, it would have been the first thing to get in the fight, as he's shown to have a base in that same temple where he keeps the remaining secret stones. So, if it's not there anymore, where did it go between Skyward Sword and Ocarina of Time? I personally think that at some point it was moved to the Lost Woods to be kept safe under the protection of the Deku Tree. In that case, why not go and get it? Either they thought it was too dangerous to seek it out, since Zelda probably told them that it was destroyed in the present, or more likely, the knowledge of its whereabouts had been lost. I think after Ganondorf's defeat, during Zelda's trip around the world to prepare the sages, she told those in that time where the Master Sword was likely to be, and this was passed down through generations of the royal family until years later in the age that Sage Rauru built the new Temple of Time. He was the one to retrieve the sword and transport it there, using it to guard the way into the sacred realm. As for why there was no hero, I personally believe that there was a hero, one who embodied the spirit of courage more than any other during that time, King Rauru. With a split-second decision, he did exactly what Zelda had been hoping to avoid, but he did it having faith in Zelda's mere description of Link, believing that he didn't have to lack courage, and if that's not heroic, then I don't know what is. With that, I think I finally fit Tears of the Kingdom into the greater Zelda story. Thank you all so much for watching this video. I put a lot of work thinking through all 6 of these theories, and I want to know what you all think of them in the comments. Plus, you can give me your own theories while you're down there. By the way, thank you for 2,000 subscribers. I truly never thought I'd get here, and I have lots of plans for future videos, so I hope you subscribe and stick around. See y'all soon.